Hello, everyone.
Hey there, guys.
This is Amanda,
This is Rita.
and you're listening to
I don't know her,
the podcast where we talk about women you've probably never heard of,
but you should have.
and now you will.
Aces.
I have a little bit of a croaky voice today
Yes.
because I have been sick for, today is day 15.
Yeah, Amanda got something yucky. So
Yeah,
we actually couldn't record because she had no voice last
Nothing.
week.
it was nothing. And it's been rough. But I'm hopefully on the mend. I still cough every night. Like it starts around 8 o'clock and then I cough all night.
Oh, sounds terrible.
It's not been fun.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to be here today and recording.
Yay, yes.
Today is,
International Women's Day.
so happy International Women's Day to everybody out there listening. Obviously, by the time you hear this, it will no longer be that, but it is still Women's History Month.
And we are recording today on the day.
And we hope that you are telling your friends about our podcast, especially this month. This is Women's History Month, and that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We do women's history. So share your favorite episode with somebody who hasn't heard of us before, or just get us back out into the world and really spread us around. We really want to see more people get interested in these stories because we think they're important. And obviously, if you're listening, you think they're important, and we need to have more people listening so that we can continue to share these stories. So normally we've been doing a Queen of Caucasity.
Yes.
But I wanted to flip the tables since International Women's Day is really highlighting the power of women.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to talk about a local hero who is not a woman,
Okay.
but is doing great work for women. Do you know John Carollo?
Oh, I do know John.
So John has a nickname. It's
Tampon John.
A couple of years ago, John started a campaign in our city called Mardi Bras. And his goal every year during the month of March, Women's History Month, which also happens to be when Mardi Gras happens, is, in February as well, is to get donations for homeless women. He works in the women's shelter here for the Volunteers of America, VOA. And so he started this campaign called Mardi Bras to get undergarments, especially like bras and underwear for women, but also menstrual products.
Mm-hmm.
And every year he tries to outdo himself. And the first year of the Women's March promoted this entire idea as well. And we just got so much
stuff.
So much stuff. So it's this really incredible program. But what's really great is that he's been so successful about it, and people have been really talking about it a lot online, not just in our community, but elsewhere. And now it's starting to become like a thing in other cities.
That is awesome.
Yeah, where other cities are having Mardi Gras parties.
That's great.
So if you live somewhere other than the Inland Northwest, I really encourage you to take a look at Mardi Gras and potentially come up with a way to host your own Mardi Gras party. Basically, you just invite people to come to your house or come to an establishment or whatever, and you ask them to bring donations for your local women's homeless shelter. And then you gather those items and take them in for people. And obviously, we want, if you are going to host something like that, make sure that the items are new or gently used.
And I don't think a lot of people that it really dawns on them that women who are homeless have a choice of like, am I going to eat today or am I going to buy a box of tampons?
Right.
And that shouldn't have to be that way.
And I do want to address something that I think it's overlooked a lot, is a lot of people think, well, why don't we just give them like menstrual cups or something like that? Because those are reusable and you don't need to come back to a shelter for them. But what a lot of people don't realize is that we can't do something like that. Because one, if you're homeless, you don't often have access to hygiene, like regular access to a sink to be able to rinse out the cup and put it back in, and or in the case of like reusable pads, like somewhere to wash them. You know what I mean? So at this point in time, our best option to help just housing vulnerable people access their menstrual products is to make sure that we're stocking the shelters with as much of those products as possible. And it says a lot about us as a society that we don't already have those things offered to all people who menstruate for free. because it's just one of those things where everybody has to do it. Everybody who has a uterus has a period.
Mm-hmm.
And you are not, not everybody, obviously. There are people who have other problems. But what I'm saying is like people who menstruate need products and need access to those products. And we should, as a society, do a better job making sure that they're always available. And that's why people like John are incredible, because they're doing that out of the goodness of their heart.
Yeah. He's a wonderful person too.
He really is.
He's a hoot.
He is. And he also, I think the reason why his heart is so big is one of the reasons why his heart is so big, and why this is one of the things he does is one time we got to talking and he really talked to me about what it was like to live through the AIDS crisis and how many people he lost.
Yeah.
And how he watched society reject his friends, his people. And I think that brought out so much empathy in him. I think a lot of times we think that we can only care about the people who look or are like us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he proves that you don't have to be that. You can care about, like, he doesn't menstruate.
Yeah.
But he cares a lot about
when
this.
I was first introduced to the event and they're like, here's the coordinator. And I'm like, it's a dude?
Yeah. He's just really great. Check out the program. Start one in your own city and let's spread this love.
Awesome.
Okay, who went first last time? It's been a while.
It's been a minute. I'm trying to think.
You went first last time.
Okay.
Because I did Effa Manley.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Mine is very short because I wasn't sure how much voice I was going to have today.
Alrighty.
And also somebody that I have wanted to do for a very long time. Like basically since maybe even the first 2 months that we started the podcast. And I've just never done because I was like, well, it is pretty short. I'm going to tell you the story of Clementine Delait.
I don't know her.
I didn't think so.
What a lovely name, Clementine.
Okay, fair warning. She is from France. I did not look up any pronunciations today.
Oh, no.
So you're going to get my worst French. So Clementine Delait was the 20th century's most famous bearded lady.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
So she was born Clementine Cloteau on March 5th, 1865 in Chamonix, France. We're doing our best. She was the daughter of Joseph and Marie Anne Cloteau, and she had 2 siblings, an older sister named Marie and a younger brother named Auguste. According to Clementine, she had a really great little childhood. It was very quiet, very idyllic. They lived in rural France. They ran a farm.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, she had nothing but good things to say about her life. Sometime in her teen years, she started to grow stubble. And by the age of 18, she could grow a pretty solid beard.
Wow.
But it was obviously, as it is now, fairly frowned upon for in society for women to have beards. Mm-hmm. So she shaved on a daily basis to make sure that her facial hair didn't grow out. Mm. And also because she wanted, to attract a man. And that was, again, just not a common thing. It still isn't. Yeah. It is. I think it's still hard for, especially cis-het women who want to attract a cis-het male partner. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very hard for them if they have a beard. So in addition to her facial hair, she had a pretty imposing stature. She was short, like she was like an average height woman, but she was very muscular and like broad-shouldered and kind of stocky. And she was just like thick. Mm-hmm. And she was actually quite dark skinned for a French girl, which she dug. Yeah. She liked her tan skin. While many would have seen this as detractors from conventional attractiveness, Clementine really embraced what she looked like. And she actually said this about herself in her memoirs. My youth was that of all the girls in the country, rough and hardworking. But at 18, my upper lip already had a promising down that nicely highlighted my brown complexion.
I like that she's so positive about it.
Super positive about it. I love this idea. She was like, it had a promising down that nicely highlighted my brown complexion. Just the idea that she was like, I really liked my beard. I really liked my dark skin. And you ain't going to tell me anything different. She met a baker named Joseph Delait when she was about 18, 19, and they married in 1885 when she was 20 years old. And the two of them just, I guess, hit it off quite well. They opened up their own bakery and cafe in the village of Town-les-Vosges.
Good job.
I just made that up. Clementine ran most of the business, and he just baked.
Nice.
So the actual business side, she was like hustling, bustling outside, out in the front, and ran the books and did promotions and stuff like that. And he was the baker. So legend has it that the couple went and visited a circus that was coming through town. And in one of the so-called sideshows or freak shows or whatever you want to call them, there was a bearded woman. And Clementine saw this woman. She was like, what? That ain't no beard.
Oh, gosh. She felt like it was weak sauce.
She did. She was like, that's your bearded lady? And so she was like, I can grow a much better beard than that. I mean, I can grow a beard 10 times the quality of that woman's beard. And so she apparently came back to her bakery and was like telling all of the customers this. Like, I went to this freak show and there was this lady who's supposed to be bearded and I can do so much better.
And customers are like, can I have my bread, please?
And she just struck me as probably the kind of person who was really like easy to chat with, you know, who liked to like really be outgoing and gregarious. And so this customer was like, I don't think so. I don't believe it.
Uh-oh. Challenge accepted.
And she was like, do you want to make a bet? I'll grow my beard out.
Whoa.
And that's exactly what she did. In 1900, she stopped shaving and grew a magnificent curly brown beard.
Wow.
Almost immediately, it drew a lot of attention, not only to her, but to their cafe. And so she decided to rename the cafe.
Ooh.
It became Café de la Femme à Barbe, which is the cafe of the bearded woman.
That is awesome. Gosh, you got something, make money with it.
Right? You got something that makes you unique that people want to see for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I think her idea was they're going to come to see me because they think I'm some kind of exhibit, but then they're going to stay and they're going to eat and they're going to drink and they're going to love our food and then they're going to keep coming back.
Yeah.
And then the beard won't matter anymore.
And she's charming too, it sounds like.
Very charming. So people did come from all over to see her, all over France. And in addition to making food and drinks, she started to sell photographs of herself in the store.
Wow.
Like as souvenirs, photographs and postcards. And then people would get her autograph and then they would take them home.
Wow.
And so she was like milking this, right? And she often would, in these photographs, pose in very traditional Victorian feminine clothing and in poses that were like super familiar to, for instance, like the soldiers who went away to war and they would take their pictures of their girlfriends or their wives with them.
Oh, okay.
And they were like these very like, there were these very traditional poses that would happen in these photographs and she would go do all of them. And then it was just such a contrast, right? Because then you would like look up and she'd have this giant
full beard.
And so the contradiction was what drove people to come see her because she had this really traditional feminine look to her, but like this really lustrous, shiny beard. In fact, when she went to see that bearded lady, one of the things that she came away with was a pomade. For like making your beard nice and soft.
Which is super popular now.
Yeah. And so she was like, well, I'm going to have this pomade and grow out my beard and it's going to look pretty. And she was really into it. And she was actually featured in articles in newspapers and magazines all across France and even sometimes outside of France, like in England and Ireland and stuff like that. And it made her cafe like a tourist destination in their tiny little French town. So people would like go on an excursion outside of their normal travel plans just to go to her cafe.
Go see her.
So before we continue, I actually want you to see some photos of her.
Sure. Because
I think that our listeners will be able to easily like on their phones or their whatever, go and Google her or look at our photos that we're going to put on Instagram. But I think it's so important that you see her because there's this one particular picture I just have to talk to you about.
Okay. It's like crazy long.
It is. It is a big beard.
It is a big beard.
We're not talking about a little stubble.
No, a little wisp or something like that. This is a full grown ass
full
beard with a mustache where she can twist the edges up.
And she does.
There's like some men that can't even grow a beard like that.
She curls it. You can tell she uses product and like really, goes and works through her beard.
There's one of her on a wagon in her dress, and she's just with this big giant beard. It's so awesome.
Yeah, and there's this one that I call it the hipster one.
I know exactly when you said that, which one that was.
So she's got this man bun situation happening, and it's a side profile shot, and then she's got her big beard. And I was like, this is the look every brewer in the Northwest is trying to pull off.
100%. I was like, oh my gosh.
And she pulled that off in the 1900s, early 1900s. So when the Barnum and Bailey circus came to Paris, P.T. Barnum wanted to meet Clementine. He'd heard about her. People had told him about her. And he was like, I've got to see this bearded lady.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, and I didn't really know this, but there were some places that would have bearded ladies that fake stage beards.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which I can imagine, right? They had an actual bearded lady, the Barnum and Bailey circus did. But he thought her beard was incredible. He'd heard such good things about it. So when he saw her beard, he was like, please join our circus. Please, please, please. And he offered her 2,000 francs in 1902.
Imagine a other bearded lady who's like, I finally got myself a gig. And then this Clementine comes rolling up. She's like, shit. She's packing her suitcase.
I have no idea how much 2,000 francs in 1902 was, but it feels like it's a lot. And I'm sure, Lucas, if you actually want to chime in, grab yourself a microphone and tell I'll pause.
2,000 francs in 1902 was the equivalent of $384. Adjusted for inflation, those $384 in 1902 would be about $11,481 in 2019.
Okay. But Clementine declined the offer.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Her husband's health wasn't great. He suffered from rheumatism. And so I don't know if that meant that he had rheumatoid arthritis or if he had some kind of just general autoimmune problem. But she was very devoted to her husband and wanted to take care of him. And just a few months later, Barnum and Bailey came back and they were knocking at her door again, offering her even more money to travel with them because their original bearded lady, whose name was Annie Jones Elliott, and she's got great photos too, she died of tuberculosis.
Oh.
Her actual origin. So originally when I thought about doing Clementine, I thought, well, maybe I'll just do like a few bearded ladies and stretch it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked up Annie's story and it was just really sad. Like apparently she had some kind of obvious genetic problem.
Okay.
Or defect of some kind because she was like growing hair as an infant.
Mm.
And so they put her in as a freak show, sideshow, even as a baby.
Oh, no.
And sometime when she was a little girl, some guy snatched her and held her for ransom.
So she's been traumatized.
Yeah, she just had a sad... I was like, I don't want to talk about her story.
Yeah.
It's sad. Let's talk about Clementine and how much she loved herself. So once again, though, Clementine said no. She declined. She wanted to stay behind and take care of her husband and run the cafe. Clementine later said this of these offers for her to be in the sideshow.
Mm.
It did not occur to me that I could only be a curious woman exhibited. I was much more and much better than that.
Really?
Aren't you like in love with her confidence?
Yeah.
She did, however, do some publicity stunts in her local area. Once she even agreed to go inside of a lion's cage with actual lions.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Nothing bad happened, thankfully. But the photos went as viral as whatever viral meant in the early 1900s.
It was passed around the room 10 times.
It was in like tons of magazines and newspapers at the time. At the time, women in France, and this is probably true in multiple places, but specifically in France, women were not allowed to wear men's clothing. It was actually against the law.
Oh, geez.
Like you could get in trouble for it. You could, however, wear men's clothes if you applied for a permit.
What?
Wild.
Okay.
So she, I guess, wanted to wear men's clothes. And so she decided she was going to apply for one of these permits. And one of the wild things about these permits is like, if you're a woman applying for this permit, you have to go through a medical examination,
Okay.
which is just seems so invasive and disgusting.
Yeah. What are they looking for?
My best guess is that they wanted to, any woman who wanted to wear men's clothing, they wanted to make sure they were a real woman, like quote unquote real woman. You know what I mean? Like there was something weird happening there. Something about that had to do with like making sure.
Yeah, or that because the fact that a woman wanted to wear a man's clothing was something to do with your health.
I don't
like
know.
Maybe you're sick or something, or
maybe they thought you were losing your mind or something.
Okay,
I don't know.
Whatever.
That whole situation sounds disturbing and gross.
Yeah.
And not great at all.
Sounds deterring as well. I'd be like, I don't want to do this.
Right. It definitely is a deterrent. So she did put in her application and had to go through her medical exam. And there are these clear medical records that said she had, quote, normal external female organs, because after I was reading a blog and there were comments on it. It was like, she was probably actually a dude who wanted to be a woman. And I was like, one, transphobic, dude.
Yeah.
Second, don't you think people would have known? Like, anyway, so she had this medical exam and they said she had, quote, normal external female organs. But it also noted that she had a lot of hair on her arms, her chest, and her back, in addition to her full beard. She also reported that she did menstruate sometimes, but that her and her husband had been unsuccessful in their attempts to get pregnant.
Okay.
So knowing what we know now in 2020, it's very likely that Clementine had polycystic ovary syndrome, which is PCOS. PCOS is not super common, but fairly common. And it is a hormonal disorder that can cause irregular periods, have an excess of male traits like hair or even male pattern baldness. And it can cause reproductive issues, like women who have PCOS often can't get pregnant. People with PCOS are also often overweight because of that hormonal imbalance. And Clementine ticked off every one of those boxes. So it is very likely that she had PCOS. And I want to just say, as we're having this conversation, I'm trying to like self-correct and try to say more things like people with PCOS and people with ovaries and things like that, because I recognize that we do have non-binary and trans friends and listeners who fit into categories that have menstruation, people who have menstruation, whatever, and who don't identify as women. So just know I'm working on it. I'm trying my best to be more inclusive in my language. I think it's a hard habit to break.
Yeah, it is.
So nonetheless, the exam did allow her to wear men's clothes, and she did often. And so there's one of those photos of her in a men's suit. So
I saw that one. Yeah.
So then I started to think about like, gosh, this person was incredible because she's also playing with gender, and not just in the way of having the beard, but now like when she's wearing that suit, other than the long hair, she looks like she could present as a man.
Yeah.
And obviously sometimes had the desire to do so.
And she was confident enough to be like, oh, she was open with that, not trying to hide it.
Not at all. And around this time, Clementine picked up the sport of cycling. So there was also a magazine cover. There's like a cartoon drawing of her riding a bicycle, and it's very funny. Though strangely, I think this is funny because I thought, oh, maybe that's why she wanted to wear men's clothes, because she wanted to cycle, and obviously wearing pants is better than wearing a dress when you're cycling. But she actually preferred cycling in skirts. That was weird. She also was a big dog lover, so there are lots of photographs of her with dogs. She has one specific huge Saint Bernard puppy dog that's so adorable. So in 1919, she is now in her 50s. Clementine and her husband adopt a 5-year-old girl whose parents died during the Spanish flu. And by all accounts, she was a terrific, very devoted mother to this little girl. The family sold their cafe and they moved to another part of France where Clementine opened up a store. And this is interesting. The store was like super high femme.
Ooh.
It was like embroidered clothes, lingerie, lace.
Probably the really tight corsets with all the...
Well, it's just all dainty.
Oh,
it's like little doilies and lace and
size
and
2 shoes.
It's just funny that contradiction, right?
Yeah.
She's just always playing with like the things you don't expect.
Yeah.
She also would continue selling her postcards as the bearded woman. Her husband died in 1928 from complications of his rheumatism, and after his death, then Clementine decided that it was the time to travel. Now she's going to travel the world as a bearded lady. And with her daughter in tow, they started in Paris and they went on to London, Belfast, Vienna, Berlin, Amsterdam, Africa, South America, and elsewhere.
Wow.
She basically did a worldwide tour as the bearded lady and took her daughter.
That is very nice, too, as a partner for her husband to be with him till the end.
Yeah, we know people often don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And after they got done with their tour, they got back to France, and Clementine decided that she wanted to close her shop and move back to her hometown. And she opened up a bar there called the Palace. Like her husband, she developed rheumatism, and in 1934, she was forced to retire and take care of her health. And her daughter was at her bedside, just as Clementine was for her husband. And her daughter took care of her until her very last day. Clementine Delait died of a stroke on April 19th, 1934, at the age of 69. She asked that her tomb be carved with the epitaph, "Here lies Clementine Delait, the bearded lady." Before her death, she had written this: "When I arrive in paradise, I think I will say to St. Peter, 'My good St. Peter, in paradise, I bet there is not a beard as beautiful as mine.'" So Clementine was all but forgotten until 2005.
Oh, geez.
When a secondhand dealer, like somebody who has like a secondhand shop, like a vintage shop.
Yeah.
His name was Roland Marchal. He discovered her private handwritten memoirs at a garage sale.
How did they get there? Who knows?
Who knows? The memoirs were written in violet ink in a school essay book, and throughout the book, where Clementine had put in all of her press clippings, her photographs, her postcards, and souvenirs from her travels, and she had dictated her life story to a local reporter named Paul Rambert, and he had been the one who actually wrote it, and he signed it at the end, so that's how they know who it was. He wrote for the local newspaper in their hometown.
Okay.
When Roland found this incredible bit of history, he purchased it for what he called a modest amount, and then he publicized it.
Oh, wow. So then not so much a modest amount probably back to him.
He made money off of it for sure. Clementine, in her memoirs, described her life as one, quote, "Without reproach, I was held in esteem by all my compatriots." And I personally believe this to be true. She seemed like a very genuine person who loved herself and was very generous with her love to others, as you could see by sticking by her husband until his dying day, and adopting a girl well into her 50s. She also embraced her unusual look, saying, quote, "I had a magnificent beard, curly and abundant, which spread out in a double plume."
She's so proud of it.
Clementine was very proud of her beard. She was proud of her stout figure, of her strength, and all of the things that made her unique. In a sense, to me, she was the founder of what we would call the body positivity movement. Nearly 2 centuries before it was popular. I believe personally that Clementine Delait is a role model for embracing gender fluidity and being proud to live outside traditional gender norms. And I have personally been inspired by her story since I discovered her over a year ago, and I hope our listeners are too.
That's awesome.
And again, it's obviously pretty short, but I loved.
Oh, it was wonderful.
I think she's just inspiring because of how she viewed herself at a time when, like, it feels like she had a revolutionary love for herself. Like, it feels revolutionary to me because even today,
that
it would be hard.
It would be so hard
to love yourself like that.
Yeah, it is really hard.
So I used a couple of cool sources. The first one is an article in the journal Gynecological Endocrinology.
Whoa, say that 5 times
I know.
fast.
It was called Clementine Delait, the most famous lady on the continent in the 20th century by Wouter W. de Herder. And it was a sort of scientific look at like the hirsutism or whatever that causes women to have beards. The next one is called The Lady Who Grew a Famously Huge Beard Because of a Bet by Kristen Thomas on vintagenews.com. The Edwardian Woman Who Made an Enterprise of Letting Her Beard Grow by Rose Heichelbach on dustyoldthing.com. And a profile of Clementine Delait with a whole bunch of photos on Vintage Every Day.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Thanks.
I liked it a lot.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I'm really hoping you don't know who this girl is today.
Okay.
I feel like you might.
Okay, lay it on me.
Jennifer Lee, aka TOKiMONSTA.
No, I don't know who that
Yes.
is. I was like, Jennifer Lee is a very generic name.
She's a record producer, a composer, and a live music DJ.
Oh, cool.
So I was told of TOKiMONSTA by a friend of mine that I work with. And he's fantastic with music knowledge. So shout out to Shane. He's always giving me new music to listen to, and everything he's given me has been fantastic. And he also works, his second job is for iHeartRadio. So he's definitely into the music thing. And I had never heard of this girl, and he had mentioned her not so easy path that she's had to take. So this is her story. So Jennifer Lee was born in LA on January 26, 1988, and she grew up in Torrance, California. Her Korean mother and father were immigrants to the U.S., but her father died when she was very, very young, like maybe 1 to 2 years old, and leaving her mom to raise her on her own. Jennifer gives much credit to her mother for providing, she said, a really good home and lots of opportunities. One of the opportunities was she started taking classical piano at the age of 10 years old. She was really good. She was really talented, but she admitted that she was a very unfocused musician. But I'm like, you're 10.
I started as a classical pianist at 5.
Yeesh. That is so young.
I played classical piano from 5 until I was 18.
Yikes.
And I really wanted to be in music when I was a kid. When my mom put me in piano, I don't know. Honestly, it was because she loved piano when she was a kid and she was very talented at it, but only got to take lessons for a single year. And I wasn't even half as talented as she was because she kept the piece that she played when she was a kid. And I tried to play it, and I was probably 12 before I could play it, 12 or 13. And so that meant I was like 6 years in before I could play what she played in 1 year.
Jeez.
And I personally, though, did not want to play piano. I wanted to play the guitar. I wanted to play the drums. I wanted to sing. And my mom was very insistent on me playing the piano, and I hated it.
I played the piano. I was actually really good, but I was just kind of like, meh.
I know. I was really good too, but I had no drive for it. So I can relate to like being unfocused.
I used to lie on my piano teacher would have us log our rehearsal time, and I would learn pieces so quickly that I would just fib. I'd be like, I played for 45 minutes 3 times a week. No, I did not.
My mom actually signed me up for a really intense teacher when I got into middle school because she wanted me to like get a scholarship. She was like, wanted me to go to Juilliard. I mean, it was bananas.
Oh, geez, that's a lot.
And I had this piano teacher who would actually slap my hands if I...
no.
I had to, so I had this problem with the bouncing wrists.
Yeah.
So she would put like coins on the tops of my hands, and if the coins fell off, she'd snap my knuckles.
Ow!
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
So I really hated that.
Thank you. Luckily, that didn't happen to Jennifer.
Good.
In her late teens, she said she discovered West Coast hip hop and was just
the best hip-hop.
fucking enamored. Everything about the groove and the style appealed to her. So she bought like little pieces of crappy equipment and started like making her own beats. As she got to college, she began producing her own music. She had no money, which meant that she had like no access to hip hop artists. Because who's going to be like, let's lay down some tracks for free? Yeah. Like not everybody's going to do that.
Especially in like a minority dominated music form. You don't want to be like, hey, will you work for free for me?
Hey, do me a solid. To fill the void that was missing from no vocals, she began to mix hip hop beats with electronic sounds. And around this time, it's about 2005, so this kind of style is fairly new.
Yeah.
She ends up signing up for what they called the Beat Cypher, which is a monthly open mic night for beat makers. And it's kind of like an underground scene.
Interesting.
And it was run by a group called, I hate this group name, Project Blowed. I didn't like that. But whatever.
You can't see my face, people, but I just had
scrunched.
a sneer. I had a sneer on my face.
She started to perform under the stage name TOKiMONSTA, which Toki in Korean is the Korean word for rabbit.
How do you spell it?
TOKI.
Okay.
The more and more she participated in events, the more and more people she began like mingling and meeting other artists. And she quickly became a name on the scene because she's like this little tiny Korean girl that's laying down some pretty sick beats. One thing that made Jennifer stand out from other artists was she would do sound collection and would build music by field recording, is what she called it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to play you a clip and have her kind of tell you a little bit about it.
This is my song, Rose's Thorn. It is a track off my most recent album, Lune Rouge. With this track, I did use a lot of field recordings. For the drum sounds, I decided to use a truck door. Rocks hitting each other and a regular snare drum. I layered them all on top of each other. Together, we have... And the great thing is when you do stuff like that, no one else will have that sound. No one else will have a snare truck door rock sound in their song. They're unusual sounds, things that are not considered music. I recorded this wonderful beach sound, that like weird bird chirping. There is something to me about creating an environment in a song. It takes you somewhere else. Beyond just the song and the melodies, you're actually removing someone from their environment and putting them by the sea, putting them in nature.
Wow, that was really cool.
So yeah, her field recording is like she's literally going out with a microphone and headphones and she's throwing rocks against walls and scratching sand with her feet and recording animals and the ocean. And I thought that was really, really unique.
It was really cool to see how she did that. It reminds me a lot of what sound editors do in Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the way that they make the sounds that we hear in films and television. Mm-hmm. I love that kind of stuff.
That stuff is fascinating. Like the famous punch sound from Indiana Jones is a 2x4 hitting a pile of wet leather coats.
Yeah.
It's like, who comes up with that shit?
I know. Like that kind of sound engineering is just fascinating and cool. There was a student I had a couple years ago who could hear stuff like that. Like one day she just really had this articulate way of talking about the way that things sound in the bottom of a purse. And I was like, you should go and be a Foley artist.
That would be fun. Well,
you're clearly drawn to like these unusual noises and you can pick them out really well.
I like how she described it as this is your sound. Yeah. No one else is going to have this sound. It's not a canned sound. She went and collected it and layered it herself. And now it's hers.
It's really smart because you can have the most generic song, right? Like that follows a very familiar melody, but with all of that background noise that adds so much depth to it, it can just highlight that song a lot more.
So after graduating from the University of California, she was invited to attend the Red Bull Music Academy. Yes, this is Red Bull, the drink that gives you wings. This is an event that's sponsored by Red Bull, and it brings hundreds of established musicians and producers with burgeoning musicians together, and they do lectures, they do creative workshops, they have in-depth interviews with the artists of like telling how to work through the industry and stuff. So it's actually a pretty cool event.
That is cool.
One thing that the Academy said about Jennifer's work while she was there, they said that she was one that would not settle. Like she kept pushing herself further and further. After that, at one of her monthly performances, she had a chance meeting with, I don't know if you know who Flying Lotus is.
I don't think I do.
Steven Ellison. He's a hip hop artist, producer. He's amazing. Also a artist I didn't know about that my coworker told me about. He said that her progressive textural beats had him just like flipping out of his skin. He loved it. He ended up signing her to his label called Brain Feeder, and Jennifer was the first woman to be signed to that label.
Cool.
So every musician's dream is to have that producer see you play and pick you up and put you on a label and you're going to make an album. She really felt like it was happening. You know, her dreams were coming true. She began collabing with names like Flying Lotus and Anderson .Paak, which I'm a huge Anderson .Paak fan. She released her first album called Midnight Menu, and she was rated the number one, like the person to look for, hottest LA lady DJ by LA Weekly.
Oh, cool.
So she's like getting a lot of attention. Then shit hit the fan.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we're on a trajectory. Everything's going. Choo, choo, choo.
She began getting a series of migraines that she couldn't really explain. Here and there, they would kind of creep up on her, and then they started to worsen. And then she had an episode where her foot went entirely numb. She put her foot on the ground, and she said it was like she had a ghost foot. She couldn't feel her foot hit the ground.
This is a neurological problem.
After seeing a doctor and describing what she was suffering from, the doctor suggested that she get tested for moya. That's what it is. Moya. He said it sounded like she had moya. And this is a disease where the arteries in the left and the right side of your brain, the arteries that supply blood to your brain, begin to shrink. The result is strokes, aneurysms, and eventually death.
Oh, shit.
So one particular area of the arteries in her head had shrunk by 70%, and another area in her head had shrunk by 90%.
Oh, God, that's awful.
So basically, imagine 6 lanes of traffic trying to go into one tunnel.
Oh, no.
So
and in the
she's
brain.
In the brain.
Oh, you start to lose things.
So she did, in fact, she had an MRI. It was positive. She had moya. And it's a very rare brain disease. People with this disease mostly do not live past 40.
Oh, my God, that's so young.
In January 2015, she decided to undergo 2 brain surgeries. One day, and then a week later, the second one. So they're going in on both sides of her brain to hit those areas.
That's terrifying.
It's your brain. Yeah.
I think any surgery is terrifying because anything can happen when you're under, but on your brain,
So she kept her illness and her surgery private. Because she's a public figure now, she just didn't want people to know.
Yeah.
Because she didn't want to be like, hey, I might die. She said she didn't want to like admit that to herself. So she only told her mom. She told her sister, and she told her boyfriend. That was it. So nobody in the industry knew. Nothing. I'm going to have a little clip play of Jennifer talking about what happened after her surgery.
Right after the surgery, I was tired and in pain, but I was okay. It was the recovery process that was difficult. I would get stroke symptoms where I couldn't feel the entire left side of my body. And just out of nowhere, I completely lost my ability to talk and to understand speech, and I could no longer communicate with anyone. And one thing that I noticed throughout this entire process was I couldn't understand music anymore.
So not only is she losing her ability to move and to speak, she couldn't walk, she couldn't communicate. She described as good as she could of not being able to understand music anymore was basically like she was hearing just noise. It was, she said, like an airplane going over your head. Like it didn't translate into anything.
Oh my God. I mean, that's like your whole livelihood, your passion. It'd be so difficult to lose that.
She said the way that her brain was receiving and translating sound, it was nothing. And so in her head, I mean, she's still in there, but she can't speak and she can't move and she can't hear what she wants to hear. Mm. She just said she felt like there was no her.
Yeah. So like everything sounds like white noise.
Yeah.
If it's music or an airplane, it's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So she would try to speak and she wouldn't make any sense. She even tried to text people and the texts were just gibberish.
Ugh.
She said that she felt like all of a sudden she spoke another language and everyone else didn't. Like she was just totally cut off. Her rehabilitation took months. She had to relearn to walk. She had to relearn to speak. Working with therapists, she slowly said that sounds and words were coming back to her every day. Like once if she would hear the car door slam, it would register in her brain that that is a car door. Like the squares were being put back into the puzzle. When her speech came back about 70%, they allowed her to go home. She was bedridden though, and she was still at times in a lot of confusion and in a lot of pain. She was on a lot of drugs, so she was constantly ill. After she got home, her boyfriend broke up with her.
Ugh.
And so she said not only was she suffering, but then she was heartbroken.
You know, when I was talking about Clementine sticking around for her sick husband,
Mm-hmm.
I actually just the other day read this thing about how like statistically women are like 70% more likely to stay around for a sick partner than men. Like men are like 3 times as likely to leave their partner while they're sick.
I can't believe that.
Right. So, hey man, you're a douchebag.
She recalls opening her computer and she was trying to put music together and she just couldn't put the sounds together. She said it was utter garbage. It was crap. And so she put it down. She decided, get better first. The music will come later.
Yeah, you got to get better first.
She said she felt like an amazing amount of clarity, that she knew this was something to overcome, that this wasn't something that was going to end her. So she pushed herself and music was her goal. She was able to make a full recovery from her disabilities.
Whoa.
She regained her speech. She was able to walk again. And the ability to identify music was fully recovered.
How long did that take?
A better part of a year.
It's a long time. I mean, it's not really a long time in a lifetime. It really isn't.
It
But
is.
it feels, I think, at that time, it feels like it's going to be forever.
Once her health was regained, she began to work on her latest album, Lune Rouge. She said this album was like her most personal piece of work, obviously, because it's a lot of the emotions of the difficulties that she went through. Lune Rouge went on to earn her first Grammy nomination
Oh, that's cool.
for Best Dance and Electronic Album. She went on to go to South by Southwest, where she played for Coachella for 15,000 people.
So she was at South by Southwest and Coachella?
Yes. And TOKiMONSTA is currently touring the world. She's performing in places like LA, New York, London, Tel Aviv, Singapore, and Tokyo. She's also been featured on a new series on Netflix called Explained, where she discusses her ordeal and what she went through with her brain disease. And she is part of season 1, and her episode is episode 20. I got all of this information from allmusic.com, ninjatune.net, Pitchfork, and the clips that I got from YouTube is a wonderful interview with her called Losing and Finding Music After Brain Surgery. Her album's fantastic. I listened to it, all of it this morning. Her music is, her collabs that she does, like the ones that she did with Anderson .Paak, and she does one with Yuna. This is a style of music I'm not totally familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
I have another coworker who's like in her early 20s, and she was telling me about all these other DJs. I mean, it's a type of music that's new to me,
Yeah.
but I really do like it. So I was asking her, like, so who's this and who's this? And I felt like I should talk in an old lady voice. And she was like, oh, yeah. And then there's this hip hop artist that's new. And I really enjoyed her story. I mean, I can't imagine having to earn all that back.
It is really a testament to her strength and perseverance to have overcome that. And it's so scary.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the singer Duffy?
Yeah.
She sang Mercy.
Yeah.
So the other day she appeared out of basically absolute obscurity.
Yeah, I was going to say she's not been on the radar for a while.
Yeah, and apparently she wrote a Instagram post and said, I hadn't been ready to talk about this for a long time, but I just want you all to know that I have an interview coming out soon. And in that interview, I talk about an ordeal that happened to me a few years ago. And apparently she was kidnapped and like
What?
raped and tortured for a few days.
Oh no.
And somehow like survived and whatever. And of course I don't know the whole story because she never talked about it until now. But I just thought, well, no shit, you'd take some time off. You know,
Yeah.
no shit,
You don't have to explain that away.
And she was like, I just couldn't write music. What would I write about? I didn't want to relive that over and over, and it was the only thing in her mind. And I can imagine that for this DJ, this artist, it's going to be similar. Like, once you come back from something like that, can you really come back? And I think it's great that she was able to do that, like able to channel that sorrow and fear and pain into music, because I think it is a great outlet, but it's not everybody can do that. It's difficult. And I think everybody is allowed to have whatever journey they need to have. And if she decided to leave music altogether, that would have been perfectly fine. Yeah, go be an architect. That's fine. You'll be great at that too.
Yeah. Her music's fantastic, and I definitely say check it out. It's really fun too, because I was at the computer today and I was rocking out with my headphones on, and Nick's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "This music fucking kills."
Well, that's a ringing endorsement from Rita Vigil, who, by the way, you have pretty cool ties to like some cool ass shit too. You should mention it real quick.
What shit?
India Vigil, right?
Oh, Celine. Celine Vigil is my cousin through marriage. She's the lead singer of 7 Year Bitch. I used to listen to her music all the time too.
Yeah, like as a teenager, and now you're like related.
Yeah. I like met her at a family barbecue. I was like, touched her arm. I was like, hi.
Yeah, so that's cool. I mean, anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because street cred. Anyway, everybody, I'm so glad you listened today, and I hope you continue to listen. And remember, share your favorite episode with somebody sometime this month. So
there's your homework.
You can spread women's history around.
Awesome.
Not like a disease, though.
We want to say thank you to our editor,
Lucas McIntyre.
Thank you so much for making us sound beautiful.
And making me sound less like a villain in a bad movie. We also want to thank Jennifer Finch of another great band.
Yes, ma'am.
And we want to thank you for listening.
All right, guys. Till next time.
Bye-bye.
Well, it should be a new podcast, Topless Podcasting, where you invite people on and everybody just has to take their socks off.
Maybe that'll be our new niche. Topless podcasting.